I'll give you a story that will give you an insight what I had to go through. Maybe about 7-8 years ago in Holland Park Mosque, I was leading the prayer. There was a Jamaat that came from Perth, and I completed my salah. I believe it was the Asr prayer, and then I turned around as we turn around, and there was one person that was staring at me. And he came from the Jamaat, and he was staring at me, proper staring. And he had this very naughty smile. And he was a bit older than me, and it was very freaky. I said, what is this guy doing? Yeah. And then everyone is sitting there. And he stood up, and he came towards me, and he said, stand up. And that's very, very strange.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Real Talk Podcast. My name is Adrian. Kaz.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How's it going, Kaz?
Yeah, not too bad. Alhamdulillah.
Bismillah. You weren't here for last week's episode, but...
Yes, I missed out. Subhanallah.
But welcome back.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you.
And coming all the way from the Gold Coast once again, how are you today, Haji Hassan?
Terrible.
Subhanallah. What's going on?
I think you went for the Raiders. That's why you're saying terrible.
Queen's birthday weekend, mate.
MashaAllah. Are you coming to...
We're going to come in and do a podcast, yeah.
MashaAllah.
But I'm so happy.
Alhamdulillah.
We've got one of the main men
MashaAllah.
of Brisbane.
MashaAllah.
You know, it's a privilege and it's an honour to have him here. Even though he's come from UK, and we've got to thank him for the Queen's birthday weekend. Guess who it is?
Who is it, Haji?
You tell the people.
Today, like Haji Hassan said, we are very, very honoured to be in the presence of Imam Uzair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Pleasure is all mine for being here. So I believe and I pray that the next 45 minutes to 1 hour will be productive.
Ameen.
Ameen.
Inshallah, we will learn a lot from each other, inshallah.
Ameen.
Ameen.
So, you know, myself and Kaz, we did a little bit of research on before the podcast, and what we really, really wanted to know was the upbringing and the early years of Imam Uzair. We've done the same with Haji Hassan, with Ali Qadri. We love to know about people's lives because I think it's something that is really, really important to kind of know, because a lot of people, their upbringings are different, and everyone connects to them a little bit differently.
I think it's sort of for our listeners as well, sort of to build a bit of a profile.
Yes.
I mean, I guess our listeners sort of know Haji Hassan Goss. They sort of know, Ali Qadri or Robbie as, the people that have done this in the community. But I guess trying to go back to the real basics, which is, what was it like, growing up, where you grew up, and, getting to this point, inshallah.
Yeah.
So I think you can start asking the question, shoot away, and let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose the listeners want to know, actually, where were you born?
Myself and all my brothers and sisters, all born in England.
MashaAllah.
So my father, he is from Kashmir. And this is the Indian side, Kashmir. There's a place called Rajouri. I've never been there myself. So my father migrated from there and came to Pakistan when he was pretty young. And then there was an opening to go to England in the early 60s. So my father made it to England, UK. Then he stayed there for how many years? Maybe about 45 years. So he stayed in England for about 45 years. And on the way, he had 5 children.
MashaAllah.
I'm the second. I have an elder brother than me. And we are all born in Croydon, Surrey. So people that follow cricket, they will know that Waqar Yunus played for Surrey.
Oh, okay.
And
he had to throw that in there. Yes.
So there's a hospital there, Mayday Hospital.
MashaAllah.
So I even remember the hospital. So yeah, that's where we were all born, all brothers and sisters. Yeah.
SubhanAllah. And at what age do you migrate to Australia? Or
first migration was very, very early. It was when I was 10.
Okay.
Reason being is that my father decided that he wanted his children to become scholars.
MashaAllah.
So there was no Islamic institution in the early 80s in the whole of England.
Wow.
So first my father sent my elder brother, who's about 4.5 years older than me. He sent him to Pakistan. And then 1 year after, when I reached the age of 10, he sent me to Pakistan to the same Islamic institution. So there's a city in Pakistan known as Saiwal. So it's about 3.5 hours from Lahore. Most of the people know Lahore, the city Lahore. So that's where I started my education. Very, very young. I remember when leaving England, I was crying at the airport because I was only 10 years old. My parents and my 3 brothers and sisters. And the authorities interjected. And they said, why is this child crying? And
subhanallah.
Because one of my father's friends, he was taking me to Pakistan. And that uncle and my parents convinced the authorities, and they let me go. So that was the first time I left my parents at the age of 10. And so my journey of study was for the next 14 years.
SubhanAllah. Did that study initially start off with Hafid al-Quran, or what was the makeup of those 14 years?
So first 14 years is that it is preferred that a person become a Hafiz first. Because as we all know that when a person becomes an Imam, he has to give a lot of talks. And what becomes very important for Imam is that he can give references off by heart. And the first source of knowledge is the Quran. So Hifz is preferred. So we started, my elder brother and myself. So my elder brother he's a genius. He finished the Quran in 9 months off by heart. I arrived in Pakistan, but because I was very young, my stomach was not accepting Pakistan. And the food of Pakistan. So I felt very, very sick, very, very sick. But my father's determination was amazing, that the teachers, they wrote a letter to him, because in those days, I believe in the early 80s, ringing was very, very expensive. And they said that it will be better that you take your child back. And my father said that I have given my child to Islam so he can die there. I'm not going to call him back. So that's how strong my father was. And then the hifz started. So I did my memorization of the Quran. It took me maybe about 2.5 years, 3 years, because half the time I was in bed. I was very, very sick. But I completed at the age of, I think, about 12.5 or 13. So first was hifz. Then what happened after that is that I couldn't eat because I had lost my appetite and I was very, very skinny. So then I had to be sent back to England for treatment. So a 1-year treatment on my stomach. There were hard times. That time that I spent in Pakistan, before entering into scholarship, and I'm referring to Hifz, was very, very hard for me. Because I was very, very sick. So after that, I had to go back to England for about 1 year.
Just for treatment?
Just for treatment.
So what did that treatment actually entail? Do you remember those days in the hospital? And what was it like?
Look, England was good. All right, England was good. But when I was sick in Pakistan, it was a very hard time because I started in Saiwal but ended up in Raiwind. Now, Raiwind is the markaz of the Tablighi Jamaat in Pakistan. And the rules and regulations in Raiwind were very, very hard in the early 80s. I'll give you a story that will give you an insight what I had to go through. Maybe about 7-8 years ago in Holland Park Mosque, I was leading the prayer. There was a Jamaat that came from Perth, and I completed my salah. I believe it was the Asr prayer, and then I turned around as we turn around. And there was one person that was staring at me, and he came from the Jamaat, and he was staring at me, proper staring. And he had this very naughty smile. And he was a bit older than me, and it was very freaky. I said, what is this guy doing? And then everyone is sitting there, and he stood up, and he came towards me, and he said, stand up. And that's very, very strange. And all the muqtadis, they were surprised because no one has done that to me before. And when I stood up, he hugged me, and he kissed me on the forehead. And I didn't know who this guy was. Now, he looked like a person that was a convert.
Yeah.
But then he started to speak in Punjabi.
Wow.
Punjabi is like a language in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And he spoke it perfectly like we speak, you know. And then I said, "Main aapko nahi janta. Who are you? I don't recognize you," you know. And then he started to speak in English, and he had a Scottish accent, proper Scottish accent. And I go, "Whoa!" And then he said that, "You don't remember me? I was your doctor." I said, "Where?" He said, "In Ryman." He said, "I remember that when you were sick, I used to pick you up. You were like a skeleton." And then he told all the brothers. He said, "I used to pick Imam Uzair up, and he was like a skeleton, and we thought that he would die."
Allahu Akbar.
And he said, "I was your doctor, but you're too young. You couldn't recognize me now." And he said that we wrote a letter to your father that you should take him back. And the father's response was that he can die, but I'm not going to call him back. So that's what I had to go through in the early days in Pakistan. So it was a very, very hard time for me. But Allah is very Kareem, very gracious, very noble. The reward is much greater than the effort that I put in.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
It's powerful, huh?
Yeah.
See, these are the stories that I don't think a lot of people know. How many people have you told this story?
Not many. You know, a lot of people say nowadays, so they say that Imams live a good life.
Yeah.
No.
All right. And they eat. So there was a person who said to me, Imams have a good life and they eat a lot of murghi.
Yeah.
Murghi means chicken. So he was joking with me. And I said, before you eat chicken, you have to become a chicken. So in the madrasas, they make you a chicken. They make you stand and you have to hold your ears from under your legs.
Oh,
and we call that a chicken. And then they used to flog you.
Yeah.
So I said, before you eat the chicken, you have to become a chicken.
Chicken, yeah, true.
So people look at us eating the chicken, but they don't see us when we are becoming a chicken.
Chicken, yeah.
So it's a hard time that you have to go through. So in proportion to the effort that you put in to attain in deen and pleasing Allah Almighty, in proportion to that, Allah is going to reward you.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
So a lot of sacrifice. A lot of sacrifice, not just by the student himself, in this case Imam was there, but of course by the parents.
Alhamdulillah.
You know, if you analyse that, you know, the father, the mum, they wanted the best for their child.
Yeah.
And in this case, the whole family. And subhanAllah, look at the result.
Subhanallah.
Look at the asset that we have now obtained in Queensland over the last 23 years, mashallah.
There's a negative side to this as well. So when the parents take that stance, the child, because he's in that environment where there's a lot of rules and regulations, and he's very young, he's immature, and I'm referring to myself, so he starts to resent his parents.
Subhanallah.
So when I went to England to lead Tarabi for the first time, and I was about 16 years of age, I didn't have the audacity to question my father, but I did speak to my mother.
Yeah.
And I said, "Didn't you love me?" That's what I said, exactly the same words. I said, "Didn't you love me that you left me there to die?" And and my mother said that every night my father used to pray tahajjud.
Subhanallah.
And he used to pray for me and my health. So there's a lot of sacrifice of the parents.
Yes, alhamdulillah. May Allah bless them and bless the whole family, subhanallah. You know, I think Imam was there 23 years at Holland Park.
Yeah, since 96, yeah.
I think 96, mashallah. You know, I think coming into Holland Park, I suppose knowing the history, I mean, you would have known a bit of history before you got there. There was some big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
how did you feel? Like
I remember when I arrived, my English was very poor because I left England at the age of 10, and so you can understand that the English of a child of 10 years of age. So that was my English. Then I went to Pakistan, and then for 14 years I was in Pakistan, and you don't get the opportunity to speak English. So I was very, very, very poor in English. When I came here, I remember that the first Jummah, I had 3 Imams sitting there. Haji Rain Saab, Rahmatullah alayh, Maulana Abdul Rahim Saab, Rahmatullah alayh, and Maulana Abdul Quddus Saab. So they were all present there. So there's a lot of pressure on me. I don't consider myself to be a orator, and I had never given a speech in Pakistan before. So they heard me speak. There was a lot of mistakes I made because I was thinking in Urdu and then translating it into English. And so there was a lot of stutter. Haji Hassan Gosab knows of that in the early days. But I will say that Jazakumullah to the community of Holland Park, that's my family now. They gave me a chance and they groomed me.
Yeah.
And I took a lot of counsel from Haji Rain Saab as well. Allah fill his qabr with Noor.
Ameen.
And Maulana Abdul Quddus Saab as well. So I took a lot of counsel from them, and they were you can say so generous to give me time and to guide me through all that. So I was only 25 years of age.
Yeah.
So I needed a lot of counsel. Then I will say Habib Deen, Sultan Deen. They were my, and Shamsul Islam, Brother Shiraz, people like that were regular at the Holland Park Mosque. They guided me. Support, because when you're young, you make a lot of mistakes, all right? In the early days, if something happened, I wanted to pack up and leave.
Yeah.
And they used to say that Holland Park will survive without you, as it survived without you before and after.
Yeah.
So they used to make me humble. And I believe that all those stern words from our elders allowed me to remain in Holland Park Mosque. And Allah reward all these people.
Ameen.
So it's me succeeding in Holland Park Mosque. It's not me. It's the entire team.
Yeah.
It's my parents. It's the entire congregation that basically guided me. If it was up to me, most probably I would have made a lot of mistakes and I would have been kicked out from Holland Park Mosque. Yeah.
Sheikh, you mentioned a cricket player earlier in the podcast there. I want to go back to that again. So where did the love for cricket come? Was it just the fact that it was always being played on the streets in Pakistan? The excitement of, playing in the street and getting the ball? And what type of techniques did they do to the ball in Pakistan? I know in Australia we very commonly put tape around the ball.
Yeah, so
give us.
Were you a batter or bowler? Opening batsman?
So first of all, I thought I'll make it into the Pakistani team, but I didn't make it. All right. All right, no.
He thought he was in
Settle down. Right. Look, I think cricket as a sport in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh is a religion.
Yeah,
so people take it very, very seriously.
Yeah.
And when you're young, there's certain people that you admire.
Yeah.
In my days, it used to be Wazim Akram, Waqar Yunus, Imran Khan, and all these people. And in the madrasas, in the streets, they're all playing cricket. But as we know that the population of Pakistan is gigantic compared to the area that they have. So they don't have the facilities like we have in Australia.
Yeah.
So to make the sport more popular, in terms of people playing, they have introduced the tape ball. The tape ball is the tennis ball, and then they wrap it up with tape.
Yeah.
All right, so it's a bit faster,
and
it swings a bit more.
Yeah.
But if a person was to move from tape ball to hard ball, it will be very hard to adjust. So that's why you find that the technique of many subcontinent players, especially I'm talking about players that have been playing tape ball from a very young age, it's very hard for them to adjust when they're playing the hard ball.
Yeah.
Because tape ball is all flogging.
Yeah.
And so we played a lot of tape ball, and there are many madrasas in Pakistan that do not allow cricket.
SubhanAllah.
And the reason behind it is that you want to play a sport that you can leave in the ground when leaving the ground. But cricket is a sport that you play it in the ground and you take the memories of that outside the ground.
Yeah.
So what happens is that in the mutala time when we're studying, in the groups, we are all talking about cricket.
Yeah.
And there's many madrasas that have recognized that this is not a sport. People become infatuated with this. So they have banned the playing of cricket. They said you can play any other game. So the other games are very simple. I'm not talking about soccer. So they will make you hop on one leg. That is a game.
Yeah.
Or there's a very popular game known as Pittu Garam. So what they do is they get a few rocks and you have to pile them up. Maybe make a castle of 7. So one person, he will have a tennis ball, and anyone who tries to come close, he will strike you with the ball.
Yeah.
All right, so you need to dodge that ball and make that castle. So games like that. That's what we used to play. In Raymond, it was, if I can say, alcohol is haram, cricket was haram. Of that same caliber. You could not play cricket. Anyone found with a bat or a ball is in a lot of trouble. And the reason behind it is that people were not studying. Boys were not studying. They were only talking about cricket. They were dreaming about cricket. In Salah, they were cricket. It's just like when we play golf. So I left golf because it became something that occupied me. Even in the dreams, my wife said sometimes that you're trying to swing, and but it was, I was avenging something, but she didn't know that. But so she was struck a few times. So you're thinking about
not intentionally. We just want to make that clear to the listeners. Not intentionally.
So when you're praying, you're thinking about that shot, that beautiful hook and all that. So I think for us, we need to keep away from things like that.
But subhanAllah, Sheikh, I mean, I guess if you're not doing excessively, I'm sure you still have around from time to time.
Time to time.
You'll get invited out.
Yeah. Look, I've been playing with the brothers for a very, very long time. There was a certain time that I was playing twice a week and I was making i'tikaf at the driving range. But, the i'tikaf at the driving. But I've given all that up now. So maybe once in a blue moon. Yeah.
So Imam Uzair, being the Imam of Holland Park, subhanAllah, so it takes up a lot of your time? And we're not just talking about the Imamate part, community services, blah, blah, blah.
Early days, I had much more free time. Early days when I came in 96, and you can understand that the community was not so big. And we, so there was not many people coming to the masajid. But as we know that our community in Brisbane has grown. And when the community grows, of course, we need to provide facilities, as we do have many facilities in Brisbane, Gold Coast. But at the same time, there's many issues now. For the last maybe 10 years, a lot of people have migrated from war-torn countries as well. They have their own social problems. And all this is brought forward to the Imams. I believe that in the last 10 years, a lot of my spare time, previous to that, the spare time, a lot of that time now is occupied. And that's why I have to give up all these sports now. A lot of counseling, a lot of social problems, a lot of marital problems, and that is very disturbing. That is one thing that I don't like about this imamate, because it does have an impact on your mind. When you see people that you were the ones that officiated their marriage, and now you see those people breaking up. And a lot of people a lot of children that studied from me in the early days, now I have performed their marriages and they have children as well. And when you see something going wrong in their life, it is very, very disturbing. So I don't have much free time now when it comes to the daytime. So daytime is pretty free for Imams. But being at 23 years, of course, there is a lot of benefit of that sitting in one place. But then you are approached much more than other Imams because you've been there for a long time and a lot of people know you on a personal level.
Okay. Just recently, there was a bit of graffiti and some anti-Semitic stuff on the masjid wall. And this has been happening, not regular, but it happens every now and then. And there's a lot of focused on Holland Park and yourself. How do you deal with that?
So the reason why there's a focus upon Holland Park and I will say myself is because the mosque next door, that program that we committed to allowed the masses to understand Islam through our lenses, the proper Islam. That is the Islam. There's no other Islam. And a lot of people that were given a different narrative and they had a different agenda, they found that we were a threat to their narrative. So from that time onwards, and I'm being very serious, before even committing to the mosque next door and reading the script and everything, myself and Ali Qadri, we both said that, look, we may lose our life one day. And this was something that we spoke about, that we may lose our life one day because there's a lot of enemies outside. And inshallah, Allah has given us the platform where we can project Islam, the true Islam, the only Islam. And we may be targeted in the future. But we made dua, we made istikhara, and basically both of us...
join the club.
And same thing, yeah. So, and then we committed to this mosque next door, and it went on air maybe 3-4 years ago. Since then, I have found that there have been more people that have approached me in a positive way than before. So wherever I'm traveling throughout the country, even till today. So last week, 2 weeks ago, I was in Sydney. I was on the plane. I was jumping onto the plane, and there was this family, and they approached me and they said, "Can we take pictures with you? You're that guy from the mosque next door." So people remember that. So it's been very, very good. But with good comes bad. With every rose, there's a thorn. So we expect that there are going to be certain people that will do certain things like this to hurt the feelings of the entire community, and we are ready for that. But of course, we need to be proactive, and we need to take precautions that no one does something too serious, like what happened in Christchurch. For that, I think the community needs to sit together and try to come up with a plan that can protect not only the leaders, but every individual member of the community. And that's why it was not only that we kept it as a secret, but there were knocks on my house midnight. So there were people trying to put fear into my heart. So they were passing by, they were knocking on the door at about 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So that was a bit scary. But we're ready for all that. And look, if a person is in this position that he can speak about Islam and defend Islam or project the right Islam, even if something does happen to him, it is insignificant. It is insignificant. That's how I look at this. But I believe that Allah is the true protector. And whatever breath I need to take in this world, I will take that breath, and I can't take any more than that.
So just touching on a few things there, I want to know, how have you seen Islam change in Brisbane? How people have responded to you in the early days of you beginning your imamship, and then to now, and also why all these issues that you're facing as an imam over the last 10 years are rising? What do you think?
Look, Imamat is a journey, and it teaches you a lot. Time itself is a teacher. But when you are in that public domain and you are speaking to people on a daily basis, and there's an interaction with a community that is so diverse, that in itself is a teacher. So you learn so much. I believe that the key to success is twofold. I learned this maybe 10 years into my journey of imamat, and it was the right time to learn it as well, because the community was starting to grow. One is that, as we all know, that we need to beautify our conduct. So many a times, when a person gains knowledge, he feels that he is absolute, and his statement is absolute, and no one can criticize him and no one can challenge him. And if something is said about him, then he becomes aggressive. So I believe that the most important thing in terms of being successful in imamat or in the public domain is that a person needs to have the akhlaq, and the akhlaq of the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was criticized nearly every day of his life. And I'm nowhere near to perfect, but I'm trying to learn, trying to inculcate those sifat of the Nabi of Allah. The second thing that I found is that we can't be dogmatic, and we can't have a tunnel vision pertaining to our religion. I believe that when we study from a certain institution that have a group of scholars, Allah reward them all, that have a certain understanding pertaining to the faith. And then we receive that knowledge from them, and then we come to Australia, or we go to a Western country, and we teach that part of the religion.
Yeah.
There's other parts as well, but only that part of the religion. And if we come across anything that is a bit different, we are not ready to accept.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, and this is all, there's no flexibility in the tenets of faith, but there's a lot of flexibility found in jurisprudence, in fiqh. So if we were to study rules, we will find that there's so much leniency, there's so much variables, there's so many different rulings amongst the scholars. I believe that in Australia that is very diverse, and we have people from different backgrounds, different countries, different cultures. Imams should know the entire ruling pertaining to that one topic.
Yeah.
And if somebody is more comfortable with one ruling that may not be the ruling that you have adopted, you should accommodate that and facilitate that. And I believe that these are the two things that we need to inculcate as Imams in this country to succeed. So we should be our horizon should be a bit more broader, and it should be accommodative to people from different backgrounds. And the most important thing, akhlaq. Our own behavior, our own speech should be upright. So if there's anything loose in our character, in our speech, then we will lose that dignity and honor.
Yeah.
So we need to be upright. And for that, a person has to make sacrifices.
Yeah. SubhanAllah.
So, Imam Uzair, since Christchurch, how do you feel with the authorities? Are we getting enough support from the wider policing agencies? Are they supporting us? I want your opinion on that. I know my opinion, but yeah.
Look, it's not only Allah fill the qubur of all those people that were martyred in Christchurch with Noor, and give their family members sabr jameel. But whenever something happens, there is a movement, and that movement remains for a couple of weeks, and then it all dies out.
Yeah.
And that's human nature. That's how human beings react. So of course, after Christchurch, Gold Coast Masjid, Brisbane Masjid, I'm talking about Holland Park, Karabi Masjid, Slacks Creek, every masjid was, they were covered with flowers. And you could see people come in and presenting their condolences and their support, so on and so forth. But then it all started to die out. And the same with the authorities. So you find that the authorities, they will say that we will come and we will patrol every day and we will come for Jummah and blah, blah, blah. And then it all dies out. If your question is that, is there something in place that is consistent? No. But were they concerned when the incident took place? Yes. But are they consistent? I don't believe so. All right. How can we make them consistent? I don't know. I'm not a politician, or I don't know how these people work. But for 2-3 weeks, there was a lot of movement around every masjid. But nowadays, we don't even find a police car passing by.
No, Imam Uzair's hit the nail on the head. There was a $52 million government grant for security. $52 million for Australia, for churches, mosques, synagogues, and not $1 of that has been distributed. Every mosque, whoever was encouraged to put in their application for their security and a budget, I know we did, I know Holland Park did, and many other mosques did.
You didn't get nothing?
Nothing has happened. Nothing's happened. No.
Have they distributed it? Or
No, it's just sitting on the minister's desk still, as far as we know. Yeah. So you are right. It's hot and cold.
Hot and cold.
It's hot and cold, and it's disappointing. I mean, it takes another incident for it to get hot again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like Imam Uzair said, that in 3 weeks' time, it's all gone cold and everything's okay. You know, in the case of Christchurch, as Imam Uzair said, 52 people got killed. Of course, we know that their time was up. Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, that's the way it's been written out. But at the end of the day, we're living in Australia. We all have a responsibility of our own centres, and I think you might be able to give us a light on this, our future Islam in Australia. How do you feel? I mean, we're in 2020 soon. You've been here for over 23, 24 years. You've seen Islam grow. You've seen Muslims grow, not just in Queensland, but around Australia and the world, actually.
Yeah.
What's your scope on that?
In regards to Islam in the West, and in particular in Australia, we should understand that the true protector of faith is Allah Almighty.
Amen.
Many a times we think that we are the protectors, and we go out with a lot of zeal, maybe sometimes with zeal without wisdom, sometimes with wisdom without zeal. All right, so and we think that we are the true.
Talking about me?
Yeah. And we think that we're the true protectors. The true protector of Deen is Allah Almighty, and Islam is never going to die out. It's a roller coaster. Sometimes it will be on the decline, sometimes ascendancy, so on and so forth. But in Australia, in terms of cause and effect, in terms of resources, the prosperity of Islam and the blossoming of Islam is based upon how we are going to react. So, non-Muslims are not really studying us as people of salah or people of zakah, right? A person is truly valued by a person when he is tested. All right, so this is something. So even in our community, when you say that this person is so good that he lost his mother, but he stood firm as a mountain. All right. He stood firm as a mountain. And then you say that this person is so good that I had a deal in with me and he didn't cheat me. You hear this many a times. You will hear this many a times that he prays 5 times a day, but he steals and he's a cheater. You will hear that. But it is very rare that you will hear that somebody will say that he is very trustworthy, but he doesn't pray. So what we find is that the akhlaq of a human being, the conduct of a human being overrides everything. And that's where a person is truly valued. And that's why if we study the life of Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our master, he won the hearts of people not through his prayer alone, his salah, but he won the hearts of the people through his conduct. And I define myself with the endorsement of scholars that conduct can only be identified as good and bad when a person is placed in an environment that is not conducive to that conduct. So if me and my wife are having a good time at home, all right, it will be wrong for me to say that my wife has good conduct. And it will be wrong for my wife to say that my husband has good conduct. But if we have a confrontation and I maintain good conduct, and I have control over my speech, and she has control over her speech, that's when you will say, yes, my wife has good conduct, my husband has good conduct. So right now, Allah Almighty, and when a person proves to be good in an environment that is not conducive, that is very, very hard, it requires and demands a lot of inner challenges. You have to defeat these inner challenges. Then in proportion to that, you get the reward.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a story from the life of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So right now, the environment in the entire world for the Muslims is non-conducive to akhlaq. We want to react. We want to let the demons out. We want all the venom that is inside to spill out. But we need to understand that we are all soldiers of Islam. Right? And we are carrying this, Allah has allowed us to carry this mission. That if we do react as the inside wants us to react, and as the outside people want us to react, is it going to be beneficial for the Muslims and Islam? No. So Nabi Kareem Muhammad in his entire life, he had many greater opportunities to react to how he was being treated by the people. But he always remained on the platform of akhlaq. So he controlled his personal emotions and he displayed the high character. And that's why when Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa, the wife, was asked that how did Nabi Kareem Muhammad in 10 years win the people of Madinatul Munawwara? Because Madinatul Munawwara was an environment, a city that consisted of many new enemies that were not to be seen and heard about in Makkatul Mukarramah. The Munafiqun under the leadership of Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul, then the Yahud, Banu Kanuka, Banu Nuzair, Banu Qurayza, then the Nasara, and then the infighting of Aus and Khazraj. So there were so many different fronts. And Hazrat Aisha encapsulated the formula to success that does not win the body, but wins the mind and the heart. And she said, Futihatil Madinatu bil akhlaq. The Nabi Kareem Muhammad conquered Medina with his conduct. So I believe that indeed Allah is the true planner and Allah is the true protector. But in terms of this dunya and how we look at this dunya and in terms of our own knowledge, it is up to us how Islam is going to blossom in this country. And if it is going to be accepted or rejected, it's up to us. And that basically means is that if we react properly right now, collectively, we will find that this effort that we are putting in right now, that is inconducive, or let me use another word, in conformity with the practice of Nabi Kareem Muhammad will bring great results. And we find that even when people come to the masajid, if we are gentle in our speech. All right. I'll give you one simple example. Usman Khwaja, the cricketer. So maybe one day you can call him here as well.
It is on the books.
His name's already down.
Yeah, he most probably will tell you. So he was. Now he's a born Muslim.
No,
he's a born Muslim.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just trying to give an endorsement to what I'm trying to say through something that is practical, that we can witness and we have witnessed. So he's born in Sydney. He said he was never ever comfortable in a mosque. The reason being is whichever mosque he went to, most probably the Imam was fiery and he was judgmental and he was attacking. So he never felt comfortable. He never could develop a relationship. Now, when he came to Brisbane, somebody directed him to Holland Park or whatever the case may be, and maybe I'm not saying that I'm gentle, I may be fiery as well, but that week I was gentle, right? No. Let me say that week I was gentle. And that gentle speech, that is the style of our Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, won the heart of a person. And now he's one of my best friends. But if that day I was fiery and I had deviated from the akhlaq of the Nabi of Allah in my speech, I would have lost this person, a gem of a person. So I believe that if this is the impact upon our Muslims, what will be the impact of our bad speech, bad reaction upon the non-Muslims? Right? So they have resentment towards us anyway. We need to put in more to get them across the line. A Muslim is across the line. So one person that is far away, he has not even made it across. If we are going to react bad, they're never going to come across to this part. And that's why I say to people that, we don't have credit nowadays. We don't, so in the streets, it's sad to say, but this is the reality, that if Mr. John and Martin were to fight amongst each other in the street and one was swearing at the other, or one slept and the other slept him back, it is okay. All right? Because you can avenge. He slept you can slap him back. But if somebody was to attack Uzair Akbar, Imam Uzair Akbar in the street, I don't have the credit to slap him back. I don't have the credit.
Yeah.
Because if I slap him back, that is a right for me to do. According to Islam, I can do that. Of course, the better goal is to forgive. But I do have the right to slap him. People will not see the slap that I received. They will only look at the slap that I gave.
Yeah.
And Islam is going to be.
Yeah. And because he's Muslim, then he's going to get condemned first.
Sheikh,
especially if it gets to the media.
Exactly right. Yeah. Sheikh, I just want to build on just coming back to the mosque next door.
Yeah.
Obviously, they came into your household. We were introduced to your family as well. Your wife wears a niqab. How does that affect her day to day? Has she experienced any negativity, or has she experienced any issues wearing the niqab out in society when she's doing her shopping or whatever it may be?
She has a few times, and
how does she react to it, and how does she deal with it?
Look, she's a homely girl.
Yeah.
Right. So she's come from Pakistan, from a very you can say traditional family.
No.
And when she came here, she used to wear the niqab at all times.
Yeah.
And in the early days, she did face a few issues.
Yeah.
In Garden City, whilst driving, she never drives, but she's sitting beside me. A few people said a few things. And like I said before, that in the Islamic jurisprudence, there are different rulings. So we sat down and we made it very, very clear that if you don't feel comfortable at a place wearing the niqab according to Islam, you can remove it.
No.
You can wear the hijab. Hijab you don't have to, you can't take off, but the niqab you can take off. So basically now how she's handling things is that where she feels she should wear the niqab, all right, she wears the niqab. And if she thinks that this place is dangerous, all right, wearing the niqab is going to attract, so then she will take it off.
Yeah.
So she can take that ruling. I have given, through Islamic jurisprudence, there are these rulings. So we have given that ruling to her, and then she is the judge where she feels that she can wear it. So when she goes to Pakistan, she wears the niqab.
Yeah.
When she goes to a Muslim country, she wears the niqab.
She feels comfortable, yeah.
If she's with me and we're going through the city and everyone's staring at her, all right, and it is drawing the attention of people and she does not feel comfortable, she does not feel safe, then it's up to her. She can remove it. And sometimes she does remove it.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
I just want to touch on something real quickly. This is linking back to Haji Hassan's episode where we spoke about akhlaq. Yes. And in your episode, we spoke about your father and in the early days of the Gold Coast and coming up. He provided soft da'wah via his akhlaq.
Subhanallah.
Because your father would always deliver groceries, fruit and vegetable to the people of Gold Coast, and they recognize him as a Muslim. And that's how, and this is a lot of people, they, like you have just said, is that they respond very well to the akhlaq.
Yeah.
As Imam Uzair said, it's an example.
Yes.
If you show a good example, then inshallah, the example in this case is a person that is a Muslim that is representing Islam.
Yeah.
It's look, majority of the people will never come across a Quran. Never come across the biography, the seerah of Nabi Kareem Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So they won't read the Quran, they won't read the hadith. But they can read you as a person. So if the Quran and the hadith lives in you, they will read you.
Yeah.
And that is the dawah. The Islam of a person is not accepted before puberty.
Yes.
So if one child says, Ashhadu an la, his parents are Mary and John, all right? And at the age of 10, he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, it's not going to be accepted. So he's under the age of puberty. So basically, after the age of puberty is where this child is responsible for his actions. All right. What we learn from this is that before this, if the child does something right or wrong, he should not really be blamed because Islam does not accept him to be intellectual right now. So intellectually, he's not active right now. Intellectually, he's active after the age of puberty, and now he is in the position to make a decision, is this right, is this wrong? Right now. Our children, if they go to the Islamic schools, they should go with this intention. And this is how I look at this. The purpose of the Islamic schools is not only to secure the students that are coming to the school, but instilling in these students the love of the religion, the sifat of the religion. So when these children move out, they are confident with their deen. And now they have the akhlaq to work upon those that were never ever exposed to Muslims before this. That should be the purpose of our Islamic schools. That these children that have come, 700, 800 students, it's not only getting them through grade 1 to grade 12, but we should have a greater mission, a greater goal, that these children that have been left by their parents in this institution, we should make them so confident with their faith, so proud about their faith, and they know how to handle themselves, how to behave, that when these children go out from these Islamic schools, they can become beacons of light for the entire community. If that is the purpose of the Islamic school, then I will support it 100%. But if that is not the purpose, then what is the purpose?
I want to back Mama's out. I've got my opinion. We've got Islamic schools, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Being a non-Muslim country, the children need Islamic education.
Yes.
And if you don't educate them in Islam up till grade 10 or 11 or 12, because after that,
it's very hard.
They're out in the open fields. This is the time they can harness their religion. This is the time they can learn all about their religion. And this is the time that they will memorize their religion. The opportunities are here now. You know, it's up to every parent, you know, to, if they can afford and send their children to an Islamic school, not just about the educational part, we're talking about the Islamic education part. Am I right, Imam?
And they should take the Islamic education seriously.
Thank you, thank you. Because the other education will come, inshallah. You know, we have to take these opportunities for our children to go to an Islamic school. You know, forget about you think you're making some organisation rich. You'll be more richer if your children coming out of there being good Muslims, knowing how to pray, knowing their deen, as Imam Uzair said. Because you're not going to get them to do that when they're in grade 12, when they're in high school, and when they're in university. It ain't going to happen. Am I right, Imam Uzair?
Yeah, look, Imam Ghazali says that every child is a clean slate. And it's what you want to print, inscribe on that plate. So what Hassan Gosab uncle is saying, that in the early days it's a clean slate. And it's a golden opportunity for us in this country that in these Islamic schools we inscribe and print upon that slate that which is going to be beneficial for this child in terms of deen and dunya and akhirah, and beneficial for those that they interact with in the future.
Ameen.
This should be our mission.
Yes. Yeah, beautifully said, yeah. I can't emphasise enough on this. This is a great topic, because if we don't speak about this, and people like Imam Uzair don't speak about this, at the end of the day, the community, no matter where they are, will be the losers. Am I right?
Of course, no doubt.
So like Haji Hassan has said, you know, when they reach grade 11, 12, they go to university, they're out in the open, you know, it's quite difficult out there as a Muslim youth. What's some of your advices for the youth today?
Look, it's very simple. You know, when the tank is near to empty, you pull into a petrol pump and you fill the petrol pump. You fill the tank and then you move on.
You have to pay for it.
You have to pay for it.
Oh, yeah.
You have to pay for it, and then you move on. So
it was a joke.
So you know, there's and how I look at this is that there's, let's say I have a car. The tank can contain 60 liters. You have a car that its tank can contain 80 liters. Uncle has a car, 100 liters. Brother, 120 liters. So he can go on for about 1,000 Ks. I can go on for about 500 Ks. Uncle can go on for about 800 Ks. Now, I give this example to the youngsters and I say that in those 12 years, you need to work upon building that tank. That how far can you go, all right, without breaking the command of Allah Almighty. So how far you can go without breaking the command of Allah Almighty. So there will be some youngsters that will go the whole day without using any body part in the disobedience of Allah Almighty. And some people may find that after 2 hours, their Iman starts to drop. So they need to go into a petrol pump, a spiritual petrol pump, and they need to fill up. Now, what is that? They need to reconnect. And one of the best places to reconnect is the masjid. So what happens is, like, I'll give you a simple example. You know, many times when we study as scholars and we graduate, one of the advices, and I come to know why now, that the teacher used to say that when you graduate, consider yourself that you have the certificate to study now. I couldn't understand that. I said, we spent 12 years studying and now they give us the certificate that we can go and study. And realized after many, many years that when a person graduates, he thinks he knows everything. And he doesn't study. And when he doesn't study, he falls back because you need to study. So if a person thinks at the time of graduation and his teacher says, mashallah, from today onwards you become a scholar, he will think deep down that he's a scholar, he doesn't have to study. So they tell you that now you have become a true student, now you can go and study. Now, what happens is that if children, they come out of Islamic schools, all right, and they think that that's it, this is Islam, and we know the entire Islam, they're going to fall into this trap. So it is very, very important for these gems, because they are our legacy, that these gems, when they walk out, they are given instructions by their teacher that if you want to sustain what you have been taught for the last 12 years, you need to connect to your local masjid, to your local programs, and that is the refilling of the spiritual tank. If they go out and then they don't go and connect themselves to these centers, you will find that these children that were the most pious, they will fall prey to the environment. It is very important that they have these petrol pumps that they connect to. So like we have, in Brisbane, we have many masajid, Gold Coast, we have many masajid. Now we have the Quran Alive. All these facilities that are there, these are petrol pumps. These are spiritual petrol pumps. Youth need to connect themselves with that. Now there may be one youth that if he doesn't come to the masjid, he still finds the Iman in him to pray at home, all right, to do the right thing. Alhamdulillah, he has a very good tank. It can go for a long time. But one day that tank will become empty. He needs to find the place where he reconnects. And that's why I say to the youth, look, one youth may come to Gold Coast and if he's very comfortable, go to Gold Coast. One youth feels very comfortable at Slecks Creek, go to Slecks Creek. One youth feels very comfortable at Holland Park. Whichever imam, whichever course you feel comfortable, go to that course, because that will be your spiritual tank.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah.
Shukran jazilan. Sheikh, that's a absolute
My tank's empty at the moment. Petrol tank, I said.
That's very powerful, and because this whole platform is targeted towards the youth. And again, coming into Imam's Corner, which is another podcast that we'll be having, that will be hosted by Imam Uzair himself. Again, a lot of the youth, they have a lot of questions that do come up. So inshallah soon we'll be able to give you those questions, and we'll be able to let everybody into them.
Khair inshallah.
Bismillah.
Jazakumullah for inviting myself and Uncle Hassan Ghosh. Allah reward you. Allah allow
Allahumma
Academy Alive to be successful.
Ameen.
And make this a platform through which many people receive hidayah. If we have said anything to hurt anyone's feeling, that was not our intention. Please forgive us. Allah Rabbul Izzat guide us in the future as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.